This is Sichot HaRan, which is Rebbe Nachman's conversation. We're going to be learning together Sicha Aleph from inside the Sefer. Okay, it starts off, Ki ani yodati ki godol Hashem. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Kapitel Kof Lamed Hey 135, David HaMelech says, because I know that Hashem is great, V'adinenu kol elikim is greater than all other gods. That's what David HaMelech says. So what's interesting about this pasuk, and this is what Rebbe Nachman is going to talk about in the Sicha, is that David HaMelech is saying, I know. The question is, what does he mean that I know? Does he mean I and nobody else? What does he mean by this? So Rebbe Nachman explains, David HaMelech, Olav HaShalom, Omar ki ani yodati. David HaMelech says that I know. Ani yodati daikot specifically. He's specifically saying, I know, because the greatness of Hashem is impossible to communicate to your friend. It's impossible. Hashem is so great. Whatever we perceive about Hashem's greatness, we can't use communication, which has restrictions, right? We can only express ideas based on the words that we have in our vocabulary, and there's no words that suffice to communicate the greatness of Hashem that we perceive. So we can't say that to our friend. And even to ourselves, we can't remind ourselves, so to speak, from one day to another day. That which appears to us and which sparks us, which inspires us from one day to another. We can't even remind ourselves about the experience we had during the previous day. What does this mean? Certainly, if you think back to a great davening you had, where you're really close to Hashem, or some kind of spiritual ruchnistic experience that you had. Maybe you were in Uman for Rosh Hashanah, maybe you were in Meron for Lag BaOmer, maybe you were with some friends and you went to some Kivei Tzadikim, or you heard a shiur of Torah that was very inspirational, right? You can remind yourself, it's possible to remember that experience, you may be filled with good feelings, that to actually re-experience it, that which you really felt, the way you felt at that moment, that which you really understood on a neshama level, on a soul level, that is impossible even to remind yourself from one day to another day. Why is this? Because Hashem is so incredibly great that there's no way for any human being to come to the level of understanding of Hashem, or else he would have to become Hashem himself, Chas v'shalom, which is impossible. Hashem is so great that we can experience each person a little bit of him every single day, forever, and that still will not suffice to describe the greatness of Hashem. So every day we have a new experience. Every day affords us the ability to experience Hashem all over again. It's not some stale kind of religious obligation. You have to go daven such and such. You have to learn such and such. What Rebbe Nachman is telling us is that there's so much to Hashem that we can only experience Him with a freshness and in a new way every single day. So much so that we can't even remember that or properly perceive it again the following day. And certainly we can't explain this to our friend. It's not possible to convey this using words which have limitations. That's how great Hashem is, and that's how great the opportunity is for us to experience Him. So he says that V'alkein Omar ki ani yodati. Therefore, that's what David HaMelech meant when he said, I know. Ani yodati daika, specifically I know. He didn't mean me rather than anybody else. That wasn't his point. Ki iyavshel lesaper klal. Rather, what he meant was it's impossible to communicate and to convey what I experienced today to anyone else or even to myself on a different day. V'omar shemoshe kos v'chorov. David HaMelech says in the next verse, Kol asher chovetz Hashem osa b'hashamayim v'oretz. All that, whatever Hashem wants to do, He does in the Shemayim, in the heaven, v'oretz, and in the land. So this already, hu inyanachal gamri, this is something completely different. Once you're talking about what Hashem does, the ways of Hashem, the things He created in the Shemayim, the things He created in the earth, and on planet Earth, in the land, this is this is completely removed from the praise that I know because I know is not something that can be described. Once you're describing something, that's on a much lower level. This is the highest of the high, because I know, me, who am not a clone, who am a unique person, that which I experience is so unique and so awesome. What I can experience, every single one of us, cannot be described. So even describing what Hashem does in the heaven and on earth does not come close. It pales in comparison to what each of us can experience. It's very, very lofty. What we experience is the loftiest thing. It's impossible for a mouth to convey what we can experience. No words can convey that. We have to actually go and experience it, and each one of us can. Only I know. And this is what the Zohar HaKodesh says. It's in Parshas Vayera, page Kof Gimel Amud Beis. Noid b'sharim balo. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. Shlomo HaMelech says that a woman, she's able to recognize her husband who's sitting in the gates. Even though the gates of the city are far from where the woman is, because she's sewed a garment for her husband, she's intimately familiar with what he wears. And even though she's very far away, and it's hard for her to recognize her husband from amongst the other men sitting there, but she's able to because she's very familiar with that garment. So the Zohar explains, Kol chad lefu madam mishar belibe, every single person, according to what their heart understands, they can perceive Hashem. What the Zohar means is that everyone has a unique neshama, and according to the neshama that we were all gifted, and the neshama that's instilled within each of us, we each have a unique way to perceive Hashem. And that's like the woman who's crafted this garment for her husband. She can recognize him even though he's so far away. So even though Hashem is so lofty and therefore he's so far in a certain sense, but according to our specific neshama that we have, we can recognize Hashem from where we are, like that woman who recognizes her husband from a distance. So there's a tremendous lesson in all of this, which is the incredible experience that awaits every single one of us every single day. Like Rebbe Nachman says, every single day is unique, and every single day affords us this incredible opportunity to grow and to experience Hashem, this creativity that we can all experience according to our unique individual neshamas. And on that note, Rebbe Nachman, he has halacha in Hilchas, I believe it's Tefillin number 5. He talks about the idea that everyone is created individually, and therefore he says, not only can you not convey to your friend that which you've experienced today, like one of Rebbe Nachman's famous pieces of advice was long before psychologists and social workers and various people who encouraged people to sit and meet with their friends and discuss various issues they were facing, feeling that was therapeutic. Long before that, Rebbe Nachman advised us. He said we should practice Sichot Chaverim, the idea of meeting with friends and talking about our spiritual challenges. And Rebbe Nachman explains over there that in as much as this was a piece of advice that Rebbe Nachman taught and encouraged, and we should do that, but the point of this is only to encourage our friends. When they're in a state of mochen de katnus, which is when we fall, or our friends fall into a childlike spiritual state where we're lost and we are misguided, or our mind is constricted, we're caught up with silly things, we're not experiencing this spirituality, the ruchnis that we're talking about. So when we fall to a state like that, it's very advisable to find a friend and start talking to your friend about spiritual matters, and you'll be able to wake each other up. This is the purpose of Sichos Chaverim that Rebbe Nachman encouraged us to do. But Rebbe Nachman points out, be careful. There is a boundary crossing over here. If you take this further and you try to push your spiritual experience onto your friend, if you try to get into their mind, into their thoughts, and try to push your experience into them, he says that's problematic. It's a boundary, it's a spiritual boundary crossing. Because every person is created in a unique way. Every person has to have their own unique spiritual experience. And when we encourage other people, and we should, it's to wake them up to the possibilities, to encourage them, to show ourselves that everything's possible and ready. Even at this moment, there's some kind of experience we can have. But it's never chalila to take a person and try to force your spiritual experience onto someone else, to mold them exactly the way you are. Everyone has to experience Hashem Kiyani Yodati in the way that only they know. So this is Sichot Aleph. Thank you for listening.